Most businesses are mediocre, and the reason they exist is because their competitors are mediocre. And the few that are great stand out like a shining star. And if you look at American business and you look at the companies, look at what Nike's done. Companies have been making sneakers or gym shoes or whatever you call them for 50 years. What were they doing when Nike was taking over the earth? Sitting around at board meetings watching them? What did they do? And it wasn't like that. They did it over a period of 10 or 20 years. What were all of these other companies doing while they were just taking over the industry? There's a lot of other companies like that out there. There's plenty of opportunity out there for those that decide they're going to do it better, they're going to do it smarter, they're going to work harder, and it'll never change.
Knowing what to say and what not to say is just one of the many ways that leaders manage human resources. How well a company's people are managed is probably the most critical factor in an organization's overall performance. The organization's leaders and managers must possess the necessary knowledge and skills to keep people performing at optimum levels. Take Artist's Frame Service, for example. In a period of 19 years, this retail framing business has grown from a one-man shop to an operation that frames more art on one Saturday than the average frame store can accomplish in a month. The company now generates nearly $9 million a year in sales from its 3 Chicago locations, employing over 100 people. This phenomenal growth is largely the result of the energetic style of its president, Jay Goltz. In fact, in 1987, Mr. Goltz was selected by Forbes magazine as one of their Biz Kids, a profile of young entrepreneurs. His constructive leadership involves establishing the company's direction, which includes developing a vision as well as the strategies for getting there.
And I'm able to articulate to people why we do things, where we're going, how we're going to get there. And I think people feel included. I'd say that's a very important word. I think everyone feels included in that. I tell everybody where we're going, and I try to have everyone in regular meetings, and they feel like they're part of something.
His leadership style also includes aligning people, which means communicating the company's direction and securing cooperation.
After recruiting, communication is the most important thing, because first of all, if you don't have the right people, you can be the greatest leader around. I have found, at least personally, you can't make something out of, you can't make one thing into another. So if you find the right people to begin with, I think you need to communicate with them so they understand what the mission is. First of all, they got to understand that there is a mission, that this isn't just a job they should show up to, that you've got to communicate what are you all about, where are you going, how are you going to get there. And by communicating that and regularly telling them how they're doing and where we're going, they can get part of it.
Motivating and inspiring are other vital aspects of leadership, which often require appealing to very basic human needs, values, and emotions.
It's quite unique the way he does it. He would seem to be easygoing, but he's such a visionary. He brings everybody with him. Instead of telling everybody what to do, he brings you into his vision and it motivates everybody. And by the time you leave a meeting, you're ready for the next day. I mean, he pushes you to be your very best.
Setting goals, communicating, and inspiring his staff are the 3 most important ways that Jay Goltz influences his staff to achieve the goals he envisions. This constructive style of leadership is essential to the effective organizational performance in all companies, but it was especially necessary for Artist's Frame Service during its early years of operation.
I never knew this about myself. They certainly didn't test for it in college. I have some natural leadership ability, but without knowing some of the basics of leadership, it's inefficient. I have found that if I try to get to the next level without getting some training on it, I'll probably figure it out, but it might take me 10 more years.
Drive, motivation, honesty, and integrity, self-confidence, cognitive ability, knowledge of the business, charisma. These are all traits which researchers have identified that may be helpful in understanding what makes an effective leader. Today, most experts focus on a behavioral approach to leadership. Similarly, Jay Goltz has had to alter his leadership style as his business has grown. He even gives seminars where he teaches others the path to effective leadership.
No one likes to do it. Does anyone like to do it? I take that back. Does anyone here like to fire? Because if you do, I'm hiring you tomorrow. No one likes it. No one feels good about it. And no one supports you on it. When you're the boss, I found you could fire Charles Manson. And in the middle of the day, they're going to go, did you hear? Jay fired Chuck. You know. And everyone's freaked out about it.
As Mr. Goltz's leadership style has evolved into a more behavioral approach rather than a trait-based one, he has had to communicate a great deal more with staff and management. Jana Carpenter is a consultant to Artist Frame Service.
When I think about Jay's leadership style, the first thing that comes to mind is incredible energy. Not only in terms of the way that he makes decisions, works with his people, but his willingness to reinvent that energy into himself, to make himself better. He's got lots of natural ability, lots of things that just come right from his personality, but that isn't enough for him. He wants to always get better, and he's willing to invest in what it takes to get better.
Jay Goltz's vision of his company has grown in recent years. He has now opened up 2 other businesses to complement the booming frame service: a home accessory shop and garden store, and a corporate art sales business. Managing human resources plays a stronger role than ever in his expanding business.
You know, you have this great going business, and it keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And as a leader, you can work harder and faster and smarter. But there comes a point in time where the span of what's happening is way beyond where your fingertips can go. And that's a big change for people, because now you have to decide, am I going to work like 700,000 more hours, or am I going to take the next step, which is develop my people to be stronger so they can stand next to me and my span can get bigger. And it's a hard challenge for somebody that's run a place all by themselves. But Jay was committed to it, and not just in terms of saying I'm going to bring on good, strong people, but committed to it in a way of taking his people, training them, giving the resources that they needed to step up to the plate, and backing them up.
I think that part of the management leadership thing is to figure out, what do you need to hire? And as importantly, what do you need to fire? Which isn't a very popular subject, but the reality is great companies hire smart, have standards that are right here, and when the employee doesn't cut it, they unhire that person. And you don't hear about that a lot, but firing is a natural process in capitalism. It doesn't mean you have to be cruel about it. It doesn't mean you shouldn't be compassionate. But if you want to run a great company, you're probably going to have to fire some people along the way, and you might even help them get another job. It might not have been, it just might have been a bad fit. There's plenty of people that are just bad fits for companies. It's, you know, square peg, square hole. And that's part of leadership and management, which means you wake up and you say to yourself, I really want to run a great company. I'm going to do what I have to do. And part of that is the unfortunate thing of having to fire people occasionally. If you want to run a warm, wonderful company, you have to do some cold, unpleasant things.
Having to hire employees is just one of the many difficult situations that people face in their role as manager or leader. These situations, or contingencies, give rise to yet one final theory of leadership: the situational theory, where leaders must adapt their styles to fit the situation.
Your recruiting and hiring needs to change as the organization changes, partially because the same kind of person that's going to come to work at a 3-person company might not be the same person that would work great at a 300-person company, and vice versa. It's probably going to be hard to attract top-notch talent when you've only got 3 employees. So as you grow and evolve and you start to let up some of your own responsibilities to other people, you're obviously going to need more qualified people to take over what you were doing versus taking over something more administrative. So you really have to constantly be aware of the fact that as your company grows, your needs are going to change.
In successful companies, a leader needs to stay focused on the big picture. Among other things, this involves deciding what details are important, like recruiting, communicating, training, motivating, and inspiring staff. Above all, a leader must establish the vision and direction for the organization so all these details will fall into place, especially the management of human resources.
It is refreshing to be able to be in an organization where the leader has such extraordinary human values, who really loves people, who appreciates people, who accepts people, and who tries to get every obstacle out of their way to make them successful. You don't, to be a success in business, you don't have to be the tough guy. You can be a really decent person, and people will want to work for you and they'll want to work hard.